welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who chugs martinis, sips gasoline, and just can't find any water. It's Sean Alvashire.
How's it going today, Mark?
Oh, I'm living the dream. Thanks for coming on here.
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of the podcast, so this is a very humbling honor for me.
Yeah, and how all that gasoline you've been sipping, how you feeling?
Pretty good. You've been pumping it in me for the last 4 days, so I'm developing a tolerance.
Good. So if you haven't heard our podcast before, we've done a Bond podcast. I think in our first 20 we did one. Mm-hmm. But Sean and I have been talking about this movie that we're talking about, Quantum of Solace, for probably going on 8 years now, because we're both big James Bond fans. And so I have a thing where I think Quantum of Solace is the worst Bond movie ever made. I guess I'll say it's my least favorite. How's that sound? Because it's not the worst Bond film ever made.
Bond films are personal to everybody, so it could technically be both. It can be, you can feel it's the worst, and the one you least like at least entertaining at the same time too.
I mean, like with these Bond movies, it's kind of like, which was your first? Which was, your second? What did you go back? So for me, my favorite's GoldenEye. What's your favorite Bond?
Well, the first, my favorite or first?
What's your first that you watched?
The first movie I saw was A View to a Kill. That was my first Bond movie, and I was hooked. And I think anyone that is a connoisseur of Bond movies knows A View to a Kill would not be ranked in any of the top 5, but it just captured my sense of global adventurism.
I mean, it starts off on the Eiffel Tower, right?
Starts out in the Eiffel Tower. Well, it actually starts out in the Antarctic, but
yeah.
And that's when the infamous Beach Boys, California Girls, snow ski song, bursts out. And then it goes from there, then it goes to the countryside of France, and then eventually ends up in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. But as 13, 14, it's just like, it was just the idea of this guy, this bachelor, and he was just super cool, even if it was a 90-year-old Roger Moore, traipsing around the globe, and, it caught everything that a movie is supposed to do, especially when you're young.
Oh, yeah.
GoldenEye
blew my mind.
We've had this conversation.
When I was 14, because I hadn't watched Bond films, really, because my parents weren't into it, and I was more, when I did the Columbia House thing, but I could just get my hands on what was that Blockbuster, the newer stuff. So when I saw Bond in 96, then you play the video game, GoldenEye, I was just jumping off skyscrapers. He was being lectured about drinking too much and letting women die. I didn't even know what any of that meant. Mm-hmm. I was just seeing tanks fly around and Xenia on the top and, great fight scenes. Sean Bean, probably my favorite Bond villain, 006. Alex Trevelyan. I mean, it was awesome.
And I would argue in GoldenEye, I think if you rank the top 10 Bond girls, I think 2 of the top 10 come from GoldenEye.
Yeah, Isabella Score.
Who is so underrated. She's so underrated. Like, I thought that movie was going to make her a global superstar. Mm-hmm. And actually, Famke Johnson was the one that kind of ended up having a very storied career with the X-Men and everything. But
I guess she had the straight man role. And then, Famke was Xenia on the top. Like, you remember that.
Right. And the way she killed people and everything.
I mean, she was good, too, though, Isabella. She was a good... She wasn't just the innocent bystander. She was running all over the place, she was a computer programmer and, and she sold it, unlike, Denise Richards is a, nuclear physicist. I still, if she wasn't in that movie, it would be a good movie.
Yes. She really hurt it.
But so I guess what you and I are going to talk about today is this movie, man. When I first watched it the first time, Quantum of Solace, I didn't like it because I felt like it was a Bourne film. I don't know why I felt that, but I watched it. Then I watched it a second time, because Meg, for the wedding, Sean's my brother-in-law, by the way, we watched the entire box set. She got that I asked for it for my wedding. That's a me move. Watched through the whole thing, watched it again. I'm like, this is not a movie. And then in preparation for this, I'm trying to have an open brain for it, but watch it again. I'm like, I feel like but we have to give it credit because it did take place during the writer's strike. Paul Haggis had to turn in a draft, I think, 2 hours before the deadline. So they had a first draft. Mark Forster, he hadn't directed World War Z yet. He was known for Finding Neverland, Monsters Ball, those kind of little indies.
Right.
And he definitely brought that sensibility to this movie. which I think kind of hurts. You know, in this movie they did action scenes around earth, wind, water, earth, air, and fire. Did you know he wanted to have those 4 action scenes?
I didn't know that was a dynamic to his vision. I did not know that. When you say that now, I see it. Yeah. But that is not something I knew that was a vision of Mark Forster's.
Isn't that crazy?
That's actually kind of cool.
So you have the cargo airplane.
You're making, my argument for me. Continue.
No, but see, I think that's, I don't know, but see, for me, like, he just went in with these ideas, and then and then without the script, it just felt like a bunch of different things plugged together that, like, weren't necessary, like, they didn't really necessarily need a lot of these action scenes. Like the one on the boat in this movie, he's just riding a boat around in a circle, and then he kind of lands at the same place. I don't know.
Look, as we discussed doing this podcast, I sent you a text months ago, and my argument wasn't, which I think you kind of...
I love it.
Yeah, you loved it. What I said was, my argument is, of the 24 Bond films that have been made, Quantum of Solace always ends up between 21 and 24. And my argument is it's more in the middle. And what I said to you was this podcast was at least my argument that it's not awful, it's merely mediocre.
Yeah.
And so to that point, I think what you were saying is true. I'm not arguing that it feels almost like a series of mini movies with horrible transitions. And the transitions are important because the first time I saw the movie, I remember after a really cool opening, I think that was one of the
chase in Italy.
Yeah, through the horse races through Siena, Italy, and then it's a direct sequel. So there was a lot of, and it was coming off Casino Royale, which I feel affects people's mental thought process when it comes to this movie, because Casino Royale almost set this new level of excellence for the series that QOS could not meet. It could not meet the expectations, so therefore that hurt it too, I think, a little bit. And then it ended up being a sandwich movie, which is, it ended up between Skyfall and Casino Royale, so then it kind of gets lost in there too, I think, in people's minds. But once that ends and you're like, okay, this is cool, and then Mr. White disappears, we got people everywhere, and and then all of a sudden you're like in Haiti.
Yeah.
And you're like, the first time you see the movie, you're like, okay, why are we here?
Yeah.
So I don't argue that there are transitional problems, not even that one, throughout the movie. Then you kind of buy into the next section. And you're like, okay, this is kind of, okay, we're getting there. And then, okay, now we're somewhere else. You're like, okay, why did we go here now? So there are some definite flaws in the movie, but I feel from start to finish, upon rewatching, it'll hold up better than some of the other Bond movies, which is why I think it'll maybe end up in my pantheon probably around 16, as we rank. But your arguments are very, I think, well thought out, because there are problems with it.
And I guess if you listen to the podcast, I had a buddy come on and we talked about Ready to Rumble, and I tried to get him to say positive things about it. So we're not trying to bag on this movie, but I also read these reviews where, like, it's not a Bourne movie, it's not this, and people really take the easy route on it. And I guess the more I research this movie, the more I realize how it kind of went wrong. I mean, they were writing the script on set.
Right.
Daniel Craig said he was writing lines. He's like, I don't want to write lines, I'm an actor. Mark Forster, the next massive movie he directed, World War Z, he kind of got pulled from, and they did massive reshoots on that. So part of me wonders if he's better with, like, the art house type vibe, and you had all these ideas. Also, did you know that this movie, I never remember this. They go from Italy to Haiti to Austria to Italy to Bolivia and then to Russia.
Right.
Does it feel like they go? I just felt like they were in Haiti the whole time the first time I watched it. Or you know what I mean? Like one area.
Right. They go to,
or South America, maybe, like, or, thereabouts.
Yeah, it's kind of like, License to Kill when they go to Isthmus City, and it's just like this generic Panamanian town that could be anywhere in Central or South America. You do kind of get that sense of, okay, we're in a Hispanic country that could be anywhere South America, Central America. They did kind of gloss over where they were a little bit. But, I remember being really, when you think of Bond movies, you think of Montenegro, you think of Paris, you think of Tokyo, you think of Macau. Port-au-Prince doesn't, grab at you, but you've got to remember what this movie was about. This was the kind of his descent into 007 as a hard boiled killer. In retrospect, looking back at it over time, there was a purpose to put him in these kind of drab locales, because I think that's what they were trying to capture was after Vesper Lynd dies at the end of Casino Royale, they wanted to take him into, they didn't want the next one to be glamorous. But a lot of people obviously are like, wait a minute, that's not a Bond movie. Like, why are we in Haiti? We should be in Vegas. We should be in London. We should be, in cool, amazing places like we were in Casino Royale. So I think what they were trying to do with the movie fit what they were trying to do with Bond, but I don't know from an audience standpoint, when audiences watched it, I think they were like, wait a minute, this isn't a Bond movie. Like, what, we're going to Haiti? We're going to Bolivia? Like, what is this?
And actually, that you made a good point. I never thought about that, because I felt like Bond in this movie was just kind of a dickhead. He didn't have any, much dialogue. He gets people killed. He takes Matthias with Bolivia. Matthias gets killed. He dumps him in a dumpster. And then, he's with Mathis, I'm sorry. And then he's with, Strawberry Fields.
Oh, yeah. And Gemma Arterton with her 10-minute, Yeah.
And then she gets killed immediately.
Right. But a nice throwback to Goldfinger with the oil.
I mean, just slicks her in that. And so he's kind of getting people killed and leaving a lot of collateral damage. And M's like, would you stop killing people so I can,
that was like a theme.
Yeah. Like, stop murdering people. So I guess if that's what they were going for, because in Casino Royale, he showed heart with, Eva Green, like that shower scene when he sits down with her, like he loved her. And like he did show he tried to save some people, but it was, so I guess you're right. He tried to become that, but I felt like that took away from the character a little bit for this, because it wasn't so much of an evolution as it just sort of happened after Casino Royale. Does that make sense?
Right. And you have to remember, but it was poorly executed. I think is a way to describe it. But I think what they were trying to do is, what would be the natural place for Bond after
losing Vesper? Yeah,
losing Vesper. Where would he be naturally? Where would this pick up? And this movie picks up, almost the next day.
Mm-hmm. Car chase.
And so, where would his mind be in that moment with, being betrayed, but still his heart still loved her. So I think they were trying to capture what he would actually be like in that conflict that he was dealing with. And he just, kind of turned it into just being a pure assassin.
Yeah.
But then there's that, that final scene where he doesn't kill the boyfriend, because that's when M asks him, she's like, did you kill him? He goes, no, but we got everything out of him. So that was kind of the last scene is him becoming a more thoughtful assassin, or something that M wants, just not a cold-blooded killer, which is like she talks to him about in Casino Royale. Like, anybody can pull a trigger, it's when not to.
License to kill sometimes.
Right.
And I have a question. When Mathis gets killed and he picks him up and throws him in the trash, I feel like he made him more visible, because he didn't even cover him up in there.
Right.
So
I just think the scene, if you want to look at it, if you want to dissect certain things, I would feel.
I was like, just put
it's
bag
not,
on top of him.
I think it was more
for the look. Like
the look of how much in that pure moment humanity was just completely gone from James Bond. He picked up a body. This was a friend, threw him in a dumpster, and then when she's like, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, he wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Like, that was, I think the nadir of Bond. At that moment, he was discarding a body in a dumpster and had zero feeling about it. I think that was if you think about it in terms of, well, the police would have saw it. I mean, look, a lot of movies, if you get into the actual practicality of things, you can go down a pretty big rabbit hole.
Well, I guess for that moment, and then she made the comment too,
It's another example of, if you really think about it, they're really trying hard to execute something that they just kept missing on. But if you watch it, I'm not encouraging people to, watch a movie you don't like, but the more you spend time on it, you realize, God, this is a much better movie. They just kept, it was almost like a singer just a hair off key. They just kept missing, but their ideas behind it were really good and really, really thoughtful in what they were trying to accomplish, but they just kept missing. And
the writer's strike probably hurt that a lot.
And you shouldn't have to watch a movie 8 times to pick up on things.